Let me try to be very brief and just to summarise what I see as the essential policy change that's being achieved by Part A, Part B being the part that deals purely with the Waitaki. It's a bit risky to try and summarise a very significant change in a single proposition or a couple of propositions, but let me have a go. As Peter mentioned, 5 years ago in 2012, the Regional Council put in place, as part of the Land and Water Regional Plan, the first nitrate loss limits in Canterbury. We weren't, I think I'm right in saying, the first regional council to impose a nitrate loss limit, but not many had done that ahead of us, and that was the time when that first happened in Canterbury. The loss limit in the limit on the amount of nitrate nutrient that could be discharged from a property, that limit was essentially a limit which set a cap on what people had been doing up to that time. The rule took the form of saying you can't lose more kilograms of nitrate per hectare per year than on average you have lost between 2009 and 2013. It was a cap designed to make sure you could say that things didn't get any worse. In passing, I think that that limit was at least part a response to the fairly constant plea, continuing even since we put that rule in place, that we impose some kind of moratorium on further intensification. We haven't done that in Canterbury, partly because it wasn't clear that we had the power to do it, but instead what we did was put a limit on any increased loss of nitrate from any property in a red or an orange zone. What we're doing now is taking that limit and reducing it in the sense of toughening it. And we're toughening it in a way which in effect requires the adoption of good management practice. As Peter said, we foreshadowed doing that in the Land and Water Regional Plan itself, and now that's the step we're taking. To achieve that, we had to define good management practice, and we decided that that wasn't something we should be doing for ourselves. We worked with a number of industry sector groups, invited them to tell us what they thought was good management practice. Other groups like Waitaki and a number of environmental groups were involved in the exercise, and eventually people came back. It was a work of a couple of years to get an agreed narrative statement of good management practice. Then we asked the same group of people and experts that they were comfortable working with to see if they could agree on ways in which the overseer model might be modified to reflect those practices. That was, I think, both a significant step, a creative step, a step that took a lot of skill and science, as well as largely agreement on the part of industry. And now what's happened today is we've adopted recommendations from a hearings panel which has essentially upheld those modifications in the face of submissions which in a number of places proposed changes. So now we are able to imposing limits on the amount of nitrate that can be lost from any farm property that in effect reflect the adoption of good management practices. We are modifying overseer in a way that generates a single nutrient loss number that reflects practices that a farm might or might not already be adopting, but now will be incentivised to adopt. Beyond that, in some zones, and the Waitaki zone is a good example of this, but so is Selwyn, Waihora, or the Hines part of the Ashburton district, we have imposed in the land and water in the relevant parts of the land and water regional plan specific loss limits, which in those three examples are in various ways even tougher still. And we will go on via the catchment exercises, sub-regional planning processes that we're employing, for example, in the Waimakariri and South Canterbury at the moment, to review the appropriateness of these general limits in those particular catchments.